Hi everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz, and this podcast has gone in full reverse from the last couple of weeks. So, as you will have heard in the last two podcasts, we had three people, myself, Rich and Hakers. Unfortunately, Rich is ill this week, so there's just me, which you'll have to put up with, I'm afraid. Normally, Rich would give us lots of guile, intelligence, basic etiquette, probably, compared to what I would do. I mean, even the other day, I would just re-listen to the podcast in the shower, just, making sure that everything was working and it all sounds good. And my wife walks in and goes, "Oh, I could listen to Rich all day," which is obviously what you want to hear from your wife, but she does have to put up with, my nasal whining all the rest of the time. So, I can understand it though. Rich has got a lovely voice from the south of England. We're pretty much chalk and cheese, to be honest, in a way. He comes from a lovely part of the country. And although I'm going to be honest, I visited Rich's homestead recently down near Reading, and the roads are atrocious down there. I don't know, whoever listens to the podcast and comes from that end of the country, sort out your roundabouts. They are ridiculous. I got lost so many times down there. But yeah, northern roundabouts is where it's at. And but we are a little bit different, I guess, me and Rich. But I miss him a lot when he's not here on the podcast, or vice versa when we're not together. That's weird. But he provides something that I can't provide, and we'll see how we get on anyway. So why did I still think it was a good idea to put a podcast out by myself? I have no idea, really. I just feel like I've got quite a bit to say about gaming at the moment. And one of the specific things that I have to say about gaming at the moment is it's to do with the time of year and how you feel during the autumn months setting in. So, you get a lot of people start to feel that seasonal sort of, what's it called again? SAD, where you feel sad from, from the seasons changing and it getting a bit colder and darker nights and things. I just think that video gaming can provide some of the mindfulness that you need out there to be able to get through those dark winter months. There's nothing better for me of a way to relax than to have like a really nice dark beer or lager. Budvar Dark at the moment. I'm going to sell this here. B&M Bargains. And, £1.80, one of my favourite beers. There you go. A little tip from me. Nothing better than sitting with a few beers and just playing some video games, sometimes with friends and sometimes in solitude. So, if I can give any recommendations for, I guess, if you have a mind that is quite restless, regularly people say to you, "Oh, have a mindful moment," or sit down and maybe get the Mindspace app and have some meditation. Take some time to really breathe and think. And all I can ever do whenever I have those moments is go and my mind is 100 miles per hour, and I need something to kind of match that almost in a way. And I find that a lot of video games do that. And people also, even if you are inclined to play a video game to relax, which I think is a great idea, some people will pick relaxing video games, which again is absolutely fine. If that's what suits you, then go do that. Comfy and cozy video games, I think they're called nowadays, maybe stuff like Stardew Valley, etc. I find them a little bit slow paced for me and my brain and how fast it likes to go. And you know how people sort of say, and this will relate to a couple of the games I'm going to talk about, how you should always use a car. Keep a car running because then it knows it's being used. I find my brain to be a bit like that, and I think there'll probably be a few people out there listening to this that feel the same way, that you need to keep it ticking over. So whilst you need to find those moments where you do relax, at the same time it's nice to have things that keep it going at a certain speed. That's one thing that I find at this time of year when the nights get a bit darker and I spend a bit more time in the house gaming and just finding things to keep my mind going rather than being outside and enjoying walks as much. So video games, definitely the place to be for me and my mindset. what have I been playing that I find to be my comfy video games? So things that I find comfy and cozy. And I kind of said that I'd relate this back to cars. One of the things that I've said this on the podcast before is racing games. So I find specific types of racing games really useful to sit and chill out to. One thing that I've been doing the last week or so, and hopefully a shout out to people that are listening, is taking part in the Outrun Retro Slice Games Challenge. And that basically is try and complete the A route of Outrun as quickly as possible and also complete it full stop. So yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to the guys who've been taking part in that, because that's been really, really good for my mind the last few days. I am competitive when it comes to gaming. I mean, I know Rich sort of claims quite regularly that he's probably the more competitive gamer, I would say, out of us, really. But when it comes to things where someone says, look, Outrun, which I gave 9 out of 10 last year on the podcast, you need to do this as fast as possible. I've never actually, before this week, completed a route and Outrun, but having that challenge there and having people push you, and I don't know you guys from Adam and the Retro Slice Gaming, but everybody on the Discord is absolutely lovely and really welcoming. And it's just all about trying to get the best out of each other when you're playing these video games. And they've made me really enjoy my last week of spending time, and that's my relaxing time. So whilst I play games for the podcast, that has been a game that I'm not playing for the podcast, although I'm talking about it in the podcast, weirdly enough. I'm doing it for me and to really enjoy that downtime. So that 5-10 minutes that I'll get on Outrun. And lo and behold, this week, it's the first time I've completed a route on Outrun, which is great. And currently, I think I sit third in the competition at the moment, which I'm quite proud of, especially against such accomplished retro gamers that there are in that group. So yeah, that's one thing that I sort of spend time relaxing with. Another racing game that I've really been getting back into recently and enjoying in that relaxing mode, and again, I'm not doing this for the podcast to review a game in depth, is Burnout Paradise. So we spent a bit of time last year talking about Burnout and Need for Speed in one of our episodes, and I reviewed Burnout Legends for the PSP, and I always sort of said to myself, I think I'll come back and probably do Burnout Paradise at some point, but I think I'm more likely to go back and do maybe Burnout 3, because that probably has a bit more. I spent more time with that when I was a bit younger. But Burnout Paradise, I certainly bought that on the PlayStation 3, and I've just picked it up again on the Switch in the Nintendo eShop for £6, I think it was, for the Ultimate Edition. And I couldn't be more happy to have that in a handheld mode in my lap at home. And again, just for an hour or so every other night, just chilling out and going to, going to Paradise City in a way, and yeah, playing that game, because I just feel like it's a very relaxed open world environment that has so many different features in there, and the music's great. The handling of the cars, as we all know with Burnout, is just, you don't even have to think about it really. You can just hold the accelerator and hold the boost button and get slung around and crumple your car with absolutely no consequences whatsoever. And I love that, just for my brain just slowly melting out of my ear and thinking, I couldn't be more relaxed right now than this wonderful sunny vista and playing it on my Switch. So yeah, that's been a really good £6 that I've spent recently on a comfy, cozy, chill-out game for me. And then that made me think that what else do I really enjoy as a comfy, cozy game? And I'll have mentioned this plenty of times about possibly being one of my favourite games ever, and that is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And again, I dipped into the Nintendo eShop recently and picked up the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remaster, excuse me, for £13. And that there represents, I think might be, I'll whisper this quietly in case Sally hears me, I think that might be the third time I've owned the game. Certainly I had it for the Xbox One, which I don't have anymore, and then I picked it back up for the Switch because I thought I really want to have it in a handheld mode, which again, I can sit, we can watch TV together, me and my other half, and then also I can play video games as well. And I spoke about this with Ollie Ollie World when I reviewed that as well. The rhythm and relaxing way that you can enjoy extreme sports games. And I'll come on to, in a couple of weeks' time, actually, I'm going to review another extreme sports game in detail. Whilst you are chilling out, something like SSX and things, where I played SSX on tour on the PSP, and there is a rhythmic quality to performing the tricks on these games whilst you're actually almost concentrate on something else as well. The great thing about the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater sort of 1 and 2 games that I've always really, really enjoyed is, it sounds ridiculous, but you know how people knit and use their hands and fingers at the same time, and it almost feels like they are doing something tangible while actually they're having a conversation with somebody else. I feel like you can do that with Tony Hawk's, and you've always been able to do that with Tony Hawk's as well. I was having a conversation with someone on Reddit the other day that I didn't even realise this, that apparently he was alleging that most of the people use the D-pad for playing Tony Hawk's. Now, I don't really remember using the D-pad that often for it. I've always, since I've had analog sticks, certainly from having the PlayStation 1 and analog sticks being brought in at this, I think it was the same year during when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 came out, always trying to use the analog sticks for the manual. And there's something about that tactile nature of twiddling your thumbs in a way whilst you're, sitting there and chilling out at home and having a couple of beers and just contemplating life. And, I do not regret picking up Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remaster again for the second or third time. The only thing I do regret, and I didn't realise this was going to be a problem, was, and this is the first time I think I've ever really experienced this, is how shit the Joy-Cons are for the Switch when it's attached to the Switch. It's the first time where I found that actually when I put it onto my TV and played with my Pro Controller, the vast difference I found with being able to complete tricks and score highly in competitions during the game was vastly improved by having a Pro Controller compared to trying to use the Joy-Cons. Trying to use a Joy-Con to revert is on Tony Hawk's is absolutely ridiculous. So here's hoping that maybe it might happen in the next couple of weeks when the Switch 2 is announced, that they'll be announcing some sort of fix on those Joy-Cons. And actually, it might be a bit of an advert for getting a better deck for your Switch and slotting it into there rather than having the Joy-Cons. And it's the first time ever I could feel that and think, actually, this is downgrading my experience of something that I should be chilling out to. So it's interesting to think that, whilst the games matter to you, also the controllers matter to you as well. Which brings me on to the game I'm going to review this week, and one of my comfy experience games that I will just drag out every so often, usually when Sal's out the house and she's gone for a meal with somebody, and I think to myself, this is what I want to do tonight with a couple of beers and just spend time on my own, and that is having a different type of controller in my hands. And also it is a bit of a Neversoft link as well, because Neversoft, they helped develop the Tony Hawk games initially, and they also helped develop this specific game as well, and it is Guitar Hero World Tour. Guitar Hero. So I was going to save this for when Rich was on the podcast, but I figured that actually I've got a lot to say about it myself, and it's one of those weird things where, to me, certainly other people will play it in groups of friends and have enjoyed playing with groups of friends and having people around your house and taking turns with the guitar. But nowadays, for me, I find it a very mindful experience that I can do in solitude that really helps me relax. I wanted to go through the game that I play the most out of the Guitar Hero series, or have done, and that is Guitar Hero World Tour. So that it came out in 2008, and it's the fourth Guitar Hero game. To give you a little bit of background around Guitar Hero, because I think it's quite useful to understand where it came from, certainly the guitar controller itself, and also therefore the development of the game. So in 2005, Red Octane, they were making specialist guitar controllers for video games in Japan. They asked the game developers Harmonix to help develop Guitar Hero with them, and they both made Guitar Hero 1 and 2 together. And then Activision, and that's where the Neversoft sort of link came from before with Tony Hawk's, they bought Red Octane, and MTV Games then bought Harmonix, and this was around about 2007. MTV Games and Harmonix went on to develop Rock Band together, and I've already reviewed Rock Band Unplugged for the PSP back in episode 3, I think it was, and it's a pretty good game. And then Activision basically then said to Neversoft, will you make a game with Red Octane and continue making the Guitar Hero games? So Red Octane and Neversoft, they made Guitar Hero 3, and this is an interesting fact that I didn't know until I was researching for the podcast about this. So it was actually the highest grossing, so that means in actual cash rather than selling units, but Guitar Hero 3 was the highest grossing game between 1995 and 2010 in the US. So if you think about that and let that sink in, how many fucking Guitar Hero guitars are just lying around somewhere, or probably just in a horrible trash heap, which makes my heart bleed thinking about, how many of these things actually sold. And on that list, if you look, I think number 8 on that list is Guitar Hero World Tour, which is a 2008 release. So this was kind of like the battle of the bands moment for Rock Band and Guitar Hero. And it's so weird to think that actually I still sit here and play Guitar Hero. And I've got nothing against Rock Band, I've just never really owned it. But I'm sure I'd feel the exact same way. It's something to be said that I still sit here and play Guitar Hero and find it such an individual experience in 2024. Sort of, I guess, almost nearly 20 years on from the very first Guitar Hero. I still remember seeing Guitar Hero for the first time, and it was at, I guess I was, 17, 18? And, I went round to my then girlfriend's house, and her dad had purchased it for the PlayStation 2. And I remember thinking, at the time I was like, this will change the world. I thought it'll change the video gaming world. And I guess for a brief period of time, it kind of did. But then it's funny to see that it has died a death in the way that it has. With Guitar Hero Live being the last Guitar Hero that was available. I don't know. I don't know about you guys out there, but I don't really know what kind of really happened. It'd be interesting to hear from some people, maybe from some comments on our, on our socials or something, on our Instagram, or, if you, give me a text, just let us know, do you still think that you'd love Guitar Hero if you played it nowadays? Because when I picked it back up a couple of years ago, I'm so happy to have it back in my house, and I'm going to tell you a little bit why. So I'm going to go through all my positives of Guitar Hero and Guitar Hero World Tour specifically, and I'll give you a couple of negatives as well, and I'll come out with a bit of a score about how I feel with Guitar Hero World Tour in 2024. And it might inspire you to either, pick it back up, or say you're never going to pick it back up, depending on how you feel about it. So the positives then. I have always been super impressed by the development of the core gameplay and the scoring system around Guitar Hero World Tour. Sorry, I'm just going to say Guitar Hero in general here, but, is this the king of rhythm games? I'm trying to think of other rhythm games that are kind of like, you could say that you've had as much fun as you have playing Guitar Hero. Dance Dance Revolution, maybe. Beat Saber. I remember, I probably felt the same about Beat Saber as I did about Guitar Hero. I was probably like, this is going to change the world. And then again, that's kind of stuck on the MetaQuest sort of realm, if you will. But, I think that this genuinely... The thing that I love about this is that you can't really hide from the way that you play this. What do I mean by that? So the rhythm, it just comes at you. The notes, they just come at you, and you have to own it the whole time. So you don't get a breath, even if you play easy mode, or if you play on the extreme modes. You don't get a breath in this. You've got to constantly be thinking about what's coming next, and there's no hiding with Guitar Hero. You just have to be good at it, whatever level you play, or just be better. It's an all-consuming 2 minutes of your life. And I don't play an instrument, and I guess the people who listen to this now are thinking, well, that is what playing a song or a gig is like. And that must be an amazing feeling. Like, as in, so for like 3 minutes, like, as in, you can't pick up your phone, you can't, look at your significant other, or you can't like mess around picking up a fucking coffee, a cup of coffee or some shit. Like, as in, you have to be just on it all the time during that 3 minutes or whatever it is, playing that song. But when you are and you hit every single note, like, you must feel like you must feel like a hero. Like, because I know that you definitely do when you're playing Guitar Hero. So I think it does a great experience of just having that immersive sort of, where you cannot hide from that experience, that you've just got to be involved in it the whole time. And that's probably where a lot of the mindfulness comes from for me. Like, the amount of focus you have to put in during that period of time, it's a great mindfulness surrogate for me. Like, all outside worries or concerns just disappear, because all you're concerned about at that moment is just getting to the end of the song in the best possible way. And obviously, depending on the difficulty and how good you are at Guitar Hero, I'm very much a medium Guitar Hero player. That's like where my abilities and skills sit. But having it doesn't matter what level you're at, like, you are constantly just involved in that game whilst you're playing that. And yeah, there's some real achievement and self-fulfillment of being able to do that. So that's why I think Guitar Hero does that comfy, cozy, relaxing mindfulness with me. Just to talk about a couple of other things that kind of like make me feel that way as well. So I've already touched on it as well, about how having a great controller can make a great gaming experience. The Guitar Hero controller does not get enough love for me, I don't think, out in the gaming community. Just owning one now, even, I feel really lucky. I mean, it's sat here beside me. I feel really lucky to have one. They don't ever feel cheap. They always feel awesome. They have really, really great input, and it's super individual and unique. So it's not a guitar, and it's not a video game controller. It manages to be both. And I've never wanted to play guitar, really, but I always wanted to play Guitar Hero, and I think that's probably because of how well they've done such a good job with the controller itself. Guitar Hero World Tour specifically has a really, really amazing set list. So it's got 86 tracks to start off with, and I'm not going to sit here and name all the tracks. You guys can go, if you feel like you want to go away and Google them, you can. I'll put them up on our socials as well, so people can see what the set list was back in 2008. It's absolutely incredible. Like, the breadth of, I guess, different types of bands that get put into this game is absolutely sensational. One thing I did want to pick up, or a couple of things I wanted to pick up on, but so I noticed that Tool had recorded like songs specifically for this game. There's famous band members are depicted in the encores of gigs. Like, that's really, it was such a culturally massive game, and and it's, in terms of seeing all these different famous guitarists and even at this point vocal artists and things entering these games and being depicted whilst you're playing through these set lists. That is amazing, really. It's, to see video games really tap into the zeitgeist and become this massive thing that actually bent something as big as the music industry into being involved in video gaming. It's brilliant. It's really eclectic. You can find, there's something for everyone. One really specific thing that stands out to me is, on this game, there is a song called Aggro by a band called The Enemy. I absolutely love The Enemy. They're a UK band, and Aggro wasn't even released as one of their hit singles. It was, it's an album track, but it's such a good album track, and I absolutely love it. And the fact that they've included that track on this game it just speaks to me. Just that one specific track out of 86, and I saw that and I was like, wow, that's super cool. And I'm sure there's loads of moments for different people. If you picked your way through this set list, to be able to find the one thing that really stands out to you, and that was like the one thing for me. In general, I would say the set list, it's probably too good for the likes of me. And what I mean by that is, I'm not, again, this is why it's probably good for Rich to not be here, because he'd be like, sort of outdoing me with his musical knowledge. I I think that for anybody that is a guitar music aficionado, they'll be able to run through this set list and look at it and go, wow, right, like I know this, and this is amazing. Like, I'm not a massive music fan in a way, which sounds weird, or if I am, I was certainly probably more of a music fan of this era than I was any other era. I don't really listen to music anymore. It just has something for everybody, and I think that it's too good for me. This music's too good for me. It probably doesn't hit hard as it probably does for some people. If you look at that set list and go away and go, actually, this is probably, a collection of some of the best songs that have ever been written, and they've managed to put it all into one game that I can play with the Guitar Hero controller, and that's just brilliant. The difficulty and learning curve of Guitar Hero is something that I think that it's really distinctive. I don't really remember too many games nailing the inclusiveness of the difficulty and learning curve that you get with Guitar Hero. You can be absolutely shocking and shit at Guitar Hero, or you can be absolutely amazing at Guitar Hero, and it's all there for you. Like, the game is constantly accessible, and they do such a good job of that. And they could have done a terrible job, and to be honest, they probably nailed that from pretty much day one. I don't remember the sort of Guitar Hero experience changing too much, and that might have been a problem with it in the end. Maybe that's why people didn't end up playing it again after Guitar Hero Live, that it didn't evolve enough. But for me, I just think they nailed it straight away. And Guitar Hero World Tour, like, you can jump between those difficulty levels and see the difference as well. Like, as in, you whilst you're experiencing the exact same game together, it's really clear to me that actually you can have a completely different experience depending on the difficulty level. And they've done such a good job of being able to melt that together. And speaking of inclusive as well, it's funny how I find Guitar Hero really inclusive on the whole in terms of the actual community. Like, it's really weird, but you can see the way that they set up the backgrounds of the gigs and things, that it really understands the music community that it's aiming at. So if you go down to, I don't know, the Key Club in Leeds, which is an emo alternative sort of night, like, you go in there and it looks like a set from Guitar Hero World Tour, which I think is a real sort of positive for the game itself, that they've managed to capture that and make you feel like you've got that experience in your home. Graphically, this will be a negative for me. Graphically, I'm playing the PlayStation 2 version at the moment, on the odd night here and there. And for 2008, it really suffers. You can tell that they've really thought they needed to move on to PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 by that point. Whilst you get the idea of this inclusive gig environment, it looks like shit. Luckily though, the notes and the actual core gameplay, graphics, the things that really matter to you, they do a really good job of making that look good. So that's the most important thing. It's just a shame that, I guess, and it's on me really. I've got the guitar sat here with its cord still wrapped around its neck, and it was probably the fact that whenever you try and buy these games now, it's so hard to find a dongle. Like, I don't understand why pre-owned games now, like, at least with the Guitar Hero games, they had a dongle that came with PS3 and Xbox 360. Everyone seems to have lost them or sold them on separately. I do not get that. What a weird sort of, like, concept. I imagine there's just, like, a pile of guitars in one fucking trash heap somewhere else. In another trash heap, there's a load of dongles, and everyone's like, we don't know how to put these together anymore. It really infuriates me. I would love to have it for the PS3, but I'll stick with the PS2 version for now. Going on to thinking about Guitar Hero versus Rock Band, I think it was pretty much sort of just a choice people made at the time. Because Guitar Hero World Tour also did what Rock Band did, which is, if you were a singer, you were catered for. If you wanted to be a drummer, you could be catered for. If you wanted to be a guitar hero, funnily enough, you could be catered for. It was all about wanting to play together. If I had enough space in my house, I absolutely would have the drum kit for this. We've got the microphones. I can't sing for shit, so I won't be doing that. But we've got microphones. We've got a guitar. I'd love to have the drum set. I will probably end up getting it at some point if I get a bigger house or a bigger room in my house. I remember, and this is going for a different game, but I remember playing Rock Band for the first time around at my friend's house and having the drums and just thinking, this is just the best. Like, and whilst, again, I'm sure there's musicians out there who think, well, why didn't you just play an actual drum kit? I stink at playing music. I just got terrible. I've got no skill set whatsoever. But playing on Rock Band or Guitar Hero World Tour, playing on the drums, there's something about it where I can actually find a way on the medium setting to actually being able to play those games. So it's definitely a way for people to, and that inclusive idea of people being able to access music in a different way or playing music. And one thing that I absolutely fucking love about this game is that you can enter old-fashioned cheats into it. So whilst you, in the previous Guitar Hero games, and this is probably the biggest improvement, I think, that you would have to play through the set lists to be able to unlock the songs, to be able to play them in your own time on Freeplay. In this, you can unlock all the songs on Freeplay, immediately, and have the entire set list there just by entering an old-fashioned cheat where you have to press certain buttons on the guitar. That to me is an absolute, game changer, and it actually makes this deal better for me because, again, with that sort of chill out mindfulness around this, I don't want to have to be progressing through a game just to unlock songs. I just want them to kind of be there for me, and that's why World Tour is the game for me, because actually I can just do that straight away. I enter the game, upload, I think you don't even have to save it every single time. You can just put the code in, and then that's it. Away you go. All those songs just rock the fuck out. One thing that I think I should mention, that if anybody does go back to playing Guitar Hero, especially through your PlayStation 2, is input lag. I didn't realise how bad the input lag would be, and how much of an actual game breaker it really is if you don't sort this out. So advice and tip from me is that if you do ever go back to playing Guitar Hero, especially on a PlayStation 2, into any of the new televisions, you need to make sure that you get your game optimization fixed on your television. As soon as I put my TV into whatever it is, video game mode, if you will, that made a huge difference in the input lag, to the point where I couldn't play the game. And I was thinking, this was a few weeks ago, thinking, shit, I'm just hating this. I'm really not enjoying myself. I looked into it, Googled it, and if you change your game optimization settings, whatever they are on your television, set them up correctly, immediately the game will completely change and become this game that you can actually enjoy and play. So, yeah, definitely a tip from me. If you're going to do it, make sure you've got your game optimization sorted out. And that's it really for me this week. I thought it'd be really important to, on Rich's behalf, considering he's not feeling very well, to have a podcast go out to say, look after yourself, look after your mental well-being, look after your physical well-being. If you're in the house and you've got a cold, get yourself a nice hot cup of coffee, custard creams, maybe a nice dark beer. Get yourself on some of your favourite video games that make you feel the most chilled out. There's my wife texting me. Make sure that you are the most chilled out you possibly can be, because it's time of year for it, and you need to love yourself as much as my wife loves me with her text messages. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the podcast this week. Hopefully Rich will be feeling better next week, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thanks.